What's going on YouTube? It is Texans Take over here, back with another video. In today's video, we have a first round mock draft where we're going through every single one of the 32 teams and selecting this entire first round. I haven't done one of these since like Dante Moore decided that he wasn't going to be a part of this draft class, but I'm really excited. I think it should be a fun one. Draft is coming closer and closer. So the way that my schedule is going to be is you're going to see a 7 round mock draft come out on the 15th. I'm recording this on the 14th, but you'll see 7 round mock draft on the 15th. This on the 16th, another 7 round mock draft for the Texans on the 17th, and then maybe a 3 round mock draft on the 18th. I'm not certain on that yet, but maybe something I'll do. And then obviously like another 7 round mock draft on the 19th. And then we'll see what happens from there. But I really am excited for the draft. I'm a Texans based channel, but I do love talking ball with all the other teams. I love just analyzing the draft and these prospects. So I'm using the regular PFF big board, but I do have my own big board that I might incorporate at some time just so I don't forget any guys. But we're on the regular PFF draft board today at the 101. We are going with Fernando Mendoza. I mean, Kirk Cousins has already talked about it in interviews that he's excited to work with Mendoza. It's not a secret what the Raiders are going to do. They're going to go with Mendoza. They're not going to trade down. It's maybe not surefire. I mean, it is surefire, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not 100%. It might be like 98.5% that Mendoza goes to Las Vegas. If someone throws out a crazy offer that they can't refuse, I don't think they're going to stop from trading down. But I think it's pretty surefire at, again, like 98.5% that they do go with Mendoza. Can hit any throw on the field. Really good character, really good toughness, just, a really good player overall. And I think he'll be successful in the NFL, especially with the Kubiak system that's going to suit what he does really well. So, Mendoza at the 101, you don't really have to talk about it too much. Here at 2, though, I am going to go with Arvel Reese. I think that, these are the clear 1 and 2 guys. There's potential of David Bailey at 2. He's technically the betting favorite, but I just want to put my money on him. I don't think that the bend is there with David Bailey enough for him to go at 2. Obviously, there is potential there. If the Jets think that Arvel Reese might just be an off the ball linebacker for his whole career, and obviously it's not as valuable a position as an edge rusher, then maybe David Bailey is a selection there. But I do think it's Arvel Reese, and I think they're going to try to develop him into an edge rusher. And at the end of the day, that versatility is there. And I think if it's a must that Arvel Reese can only play off the ball linebacker, then you still have one of the best off the ball linebackers in the league with elite traits off the ball, but I think he could develop into a really, really good edge rusher, especially with time, which the Jets do have. They're not looking to compete this year. So give them time to develop, give them the time to, figure out how to work edge in the NFL, and I think he'll be a really good player moving forward. Here at number 3 to the Arizona Cardinals, I am going to go with tackle here. I'm going to go with Francis Mauigoa. I just think it seems like that's going to be the selection all day of the week. I think he's going to slot in at right tackle. You have Paris Johnson on the left-hand side. I think it is a big need for the Cardinals to address that. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Sonny Styles goes here. Sonny Styles is a second-ranked player on my board. I really like him a lot. It goes Mendoza and Sonny Styles, and then I believe it's Arvel Reese and Jeremiah Love is the order of it. But I really like Sonny Styles as a player. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the pick at 3. Quite frankly, I really like him at 3. But in this case, it is Melino. I think the Cardinals go with the more valuable position at offensive tackle. Going to slide in that right tackle right away. And if it's not at right tackle, then he still has the ability to slot inside at right guard, left guard, whatever it may be. He has a lot of positional versatility in the NFL. So I think it is a good pick for the Cardinals there just to shore up their offensive line. So when they do get their quarterback in 2027, they're able to move forward and not really have to worry about that. Titans at 4. Obviously, I hate the Titans, so every bit of me wants to go give them like Brett Thorson in the first round, but we're gonna go with Jeremiah Love here. I think it does make the most sense. You kind of have your foundations laid. I think that Cam Ward's a very solid player. I think your offensive line's decent. Maybe you look at a left tackle in this draft. But I think J.C. Latham could be a good player. I think he still has some developing to do. I think you had a very solid free agency, especially on the defensive side of the ball. John Franklin Myers getting some corner depth in there as well. Wandale Robinson's obviously a big one. But I think that one thing you're missing is that running back. And I think Jeremiah Love's arguably the best player in this class, just not at the valuable position of running back. But I think, the Titans could really elevate their offense and really help out Cam Ward by drafting Jeremiah Love. So I do think it's the easy selection for them there at pick number 4. Pick number 5 to the Giants is interesting. I don't know what they are gonna do here. Just because I'm between Styles and Downs, I'm between the Ohio State guys. Um, and for me, I am going to go with I think I'm gonna go with Sonny Styles here. Eh. No, I'm actually gonna trade out of this pick, and I'm gonna trade to an in division rival here. I think this is gonna be something actually. No, I'll trade with the Dolphins just because I don't want it to be an in division rival. I think it does make sense as well for the Dolphins to do this. Not really, actually. Now that I'm thinking of it, it has to be the Cowboys. I'm so sorry, Giants fans. I know you're going to hate me for this, but I think the value you're getting is too good. So we're going to force this trade here. Giants are going to pick up 2 first round picks. I think you're going to like the way that your first round pans out, though, if you're a Giants fan. Cowboys move up. They're looking to draft Sonny Styles out of Ohio State to really shore up that linebacker room that does need a lot of help. Um, and help they get here with Sonny Styles going to them at pick number 5. Obviously, with the Cowboys, I don't think you can see them anymore. Oh no, you can. You could give up a first next year or something like that. I think the draft class is too valuable for that though. So I think they'll try to move out 12 and 20 to try to move up and get their guy. I don't know if their guy's Sonny Styles. I don't know if their guy's David Bailey. I really don't know who it is, but I'm just going with the player I like most, and that is Sonny Styles there at pick number 5. At number 6 to the Browns, I'm going to go down the board a little bit here. And Caden Proctor's interesting. They had some links to him at 6 potentially, but I am just going to go with the guy that I've liked for a while. Especially when he was in the range of 28 to the Texans. I really like the idea of him there. But Monroe Freeling to the Browns at 6. I think they need a true left tackle. And I don't think there's anyone that really can truly play left tackle in the NFL other than Freeling. I mean, obviously you have Fano, who's going to play inside either at guard or center. Miller's going to play right tackle. I think he does have the arm length to potentially slot in at left tackle, but never lined up in that spot in his collegiate career. Caden Proctor has potential to play left tackle, and you don't really know what his range is just because of how unique of a player he is. Ihanachor, I think, is going to play right tackle in the NFL. Lomu's going to slot inside at guard, in my opinion, or play right tackle. Markel Bell could potentially play left tackle just because of how big of a human being he is, but I think he's a developmental player. Trey Zune's going to slot inside at center. So, if you're trying to get top of the end franchise left tackle, I think Freeling's really the only route to go. And I think the Browns do have a very big need there at left tackle. So, Monroe Freeling is the pick there for me. Pick number 7 with the Commanders. I think this could be a trade up with the Dolphins actually. If the Dolphins want to go get a DB, if they want to go get their, favorite receiver in this class and allow the Commanders to get some capital in there. So, we're going to do that actually. We're going to trade up Dolphins, go get their guy. Uh am I actually going to do this? I feel like there's a lot of picks, and I think the Commanders are in a spot where they need 2 picks on the first round because I think they need, someone like maybe a Keldrick Falk in the back half of the first round, and then maybe someone like a Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper in the back half of the first round. I don't really know, but we'll stick here at 7 with the Commanders. I don't want to do too many trades. I guess I've only done one, but here with 7 with the Commanders, I am going to give them the first receiver off the board with Cardinal Tate out of Ohio State. I think he's going to be able to really feast off Terry McLaurin being that deep threat, allow him to be over the intermediate parts of the field, which he excels in. Really good route runner, really good with his hands. And I think he's just probably the most polished receiver in this class in terms of just overall with, no injury history, no concerns or anything like that, no character concerns. Just goes out there and balls, and he's going to ball in the NFL, in my opinion. And I think that's a very good um, pick there for the Commanders. Here at 8 to the Saints, I am going to go with. Ooh, who am I going to go with? I'm between a couple of players right now. I'm going to give him David Bailey. I think you can't overlook best player available, and I think Bailey could have gone at 7. I was between Bailey and Tate, and I realized maybe the Commanders could be better off getting an edge rusher later in the draft, and then picking a receiver at 11 or something like that. But Carnell Tate just made too much sense for them. David Bailey, I think, you know, with Cameron Jordan aging, I think he could just slot in and play right away and be a really good, productive player for the Saints, and I think that's a good pick for them. Um, getting a guy that could potentially go at 2 and he goes all the way down to 8. in my opinion, you're dumb not to take him. I think he could have gone at 4 to the Titans as well, but I think Jeremiah Love might be a shoo-in at this point because I don't think he goes higher, but I think at 4 it does make a lot of sense for them. If not, I think he goes at 7 to the Commanders. But we're here at 9 with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm gonna go with Mansour Delane here. I think he's emerged as my CB1 in this class. I've been close with him and McCoy for a while, and I'm still very high on Jamar McCoy. Don't get me wrong, but I think Delane, the tape from last year is just really, really good, and I think he cemented himself as a CB1 just because Jamar McCoy didn't play. Is the only real reasoning I could give you because if Jamar McCoy played and he played at that 2024 level, then Jamar McCoy is going maybe 4. Maybe the Giants at 5 could even look at corner. Or, if the Cowboys move up, they could be looking at Jamal McCoy at 5. They need a corner really badly as well, but in this case, they do get Sonny Styles. But Delane's just such a good player. You know, Chiefs develop corner really well. I think Delane's going to be a really good schematic fit there, and I think that's somewhere he could end up. Maybe if the Cowboys aren't able to get their edge rusher, they move up to 8 to the Saints pick to try to just steal Delane off the Chiefs' hands. But in this case, Delane does make it to 9, and he does go to Kansas City. Here at number 10 with the uh, Cincinnati Bengals, excuse me. I think this is an interesting pick. They could go a lot of different defensive directions, excuse me. But I'm going to give him a versatile piece that's going to play a lot of in the box type stuff, but he is a safety at the end of the day, and that is Caleb Downs, one of my favorite players in this draft. And I think that, he could really excel in the NFL just with his skill set. If you want to use him, I'm not going to say he is a Kyle Hamilton, but if you use him like a Kyle Hamilton, I think he's going to excel and be a very good player. So I think the Bengals need someone like that who's just going to be, a good player off the jump and then develop into an elite player. Maybe he's an elite player off the jump. You don't really know, but I think the Bengals do need someone who can slot in defensively right away and just make a huge impact on the team. And I think Caleb Downs certainly does that for them. So at pick number 10, that's why I'm going with him. At number 11, too, the Dolphins. I think this could be a receiver spot. Cardinal Tate already went, so who do you want to consider here? Omar Cooper is really in the running for me. I just love him as a player, to be honest. I think Jordan Tyson could be in the running. Makai Lemon, I think he does go around that range, maybe at like 19, 20. Which could work for the Giants, actually. They do need a little slot receiver in there. But here at 11 to the Dolphins, I think you do have some secondary issues there, and I am going to address them here. I'm going to go with Jermont McCoy at 11, maybe a little early for him. I'm not sure. But 3 DBs go in a row. I don't think you want to miss out on too much just because there's not that many boundary corners. Chris Johnson could play the boundary. D'Angelo Ponz is going to be a nickel. Avion Terrell is going to be a nickel. Colton Hood could potentially play the boundary at 6 foot 195. A young player too who has time to develop, but I think he's going to be a second round pick. And I think you want someone that can be, a surefire contributor for you. And Jamal McCoy is certainly that at 11 for you. So, I think you get one of your cornerstone pieces defensively for the future in Jamal McCoy, and someone who's a really, really good player, and I think is going to develop coming off that ACL tear, which is the only real concern for him because the tape is elite, and I really like him as a player. Here at number 12, with the Giants, though, I think you trade down for this reason and this reason in particular, and that is to trade down to get some offensive line. You're not relying on Daniel Falele. In all seriousness, I don't know why they signed him. When you have one Evan Neal, you don't get two Evan Neals. You try to improve on Evan Neal. But you do that here by getting Ione, who's maybe the best offensive lineman in this class, but the best true guard. And obviously, guard's not as valuable as a position of tackle, which is why Maui Noah and Freeland go above him. But really good player there, Ione is. So I think it does make a lot of sense for him or for the Giants to move back and try to get Ione at 12 there, or who's a team that could move up for maybe if the Chiefs move up from 9 to 5 to get their pick of what edge rusher they want between like Bailey and if Ruben Bain's there. I think Bain in this instance I'm having him fall because of the news that I saw. Obviously NFL teams are aware of that, but might as well try it, see what happens in this scenario. Here at 13 though with the Rams, I am going to just give him a Kyle Lemon. I don't think people understand that receivers not, you know, solidified. You have Devontae Adams, you have Puka Nakua, but how long do you have Devontae Adams for? And if you can have two Puka Nakuas on opposite sides of the field, why not do that? I think Makai Lemon's a really good player after the catch. I've said it multiple times. I did have a draft crush on him at the beginning of the process. it's kind of dwindled away from, just character and stuff like that. But I do think he's a very good player. And I think he would be a good fit there in Los Angeles just because he does a lot of stuff they try to emulate. Um, I don't think he's a good fit in somewhere like Baltimore, for example, but I think um, at 13, it does make a lot of sense for them. At 13, sorry, I don't know if I said 14. Here at 14, though, I am going to make a slight little trade here. And it's going to be with the Carolina Panthers, actually, from pick number 19. So we'll just give 19, and it'll probably be like a third and something else. But we'll just do that. It doesn't really matter. It's only a first round mock draft, but the Carolina Panthers are moving up, and they are moving up to get their dynamic playmaker at tight end in Kenyon Sadiq, trying to jump the Buccaneers, who I think could target a tight end. Kenyon Sadiq, just a dynamic athlete, and I think would add a lot of dynamicism to that Carolina offense. Um, and the reason they move up is to really just stop the Buccaneers from drafting them because I think Sadiq, if he makes it to 15, could be a pick at 15 to the Buccaneers. And I think that's dumb for them not to take it. But in this instance, Sadiq is going across the country from Oregon all the way to Charlotte uh, to where that purple and blue, or black and blue, excuse me. I don't know where I got purple from. But really good player, really dynamic athlete at the tight end position. Something that's rare. He possesses is that athleticism that he does have in comparison to a lot of other tight ends. So I think it's a really good pick for Carolina. I don't know how far Sadiq's going to fall in the draft just because tight end's not as valuable of a position, but with the way they're being utilized in the NFL right now, I think it is becoming a little bit more of a valuable position. Panthers this time move up to go secure their guy in Kenyon Sadiq. I think they could look to the defensive line. Maybe they look to Nakeem Mesidor at 19, or, trade down a little bit, try to get a Caden McDonald to slot in at one tech. I don't really know, but Kenyon Sadiq there at 14 to Carolina does sound right. At 15, though, to Tampa Bay, this is going to stop the Ruben Bain fall. I think they could utilize an edge rusher. I don't know if he'll be an interior defensive lineman or an exterior defensive lineman um, in the NFL, but I think the Buccaneers could utilize him in a lot of different ways that would be helpful for them. So you know, not going to speak too much on his incident, but I do think it'll cause him to fall a little bit, already with having short arm length and stuff like that. Maybe he falls into the mid teens. This time the Buccaneers take a swing on him, keep the Florida guy in state, and just drive to Tampa. Ruben Bain does. Good player, all things considered. Really good production in college. 12 sacks this past season, 9 in 2023. Probably the best player in college football this past season, and this time he lands in Tampa Bay, and maybe they hit on this pick. You don't really know. Here at 16 to the Jets, I am going to go with the receiver this time. You went with Arvell Reese originally, and now at 16, you're going to go with Omar Cooper here. I like him more than Jordan Tyson. I'm really concerned with Jordan Tyson's injury history. I wasn't originally, and it does just take one team to take a swing on him for him to go early. But I think Omar Cooper's a great player, and I think the Jets, maybe if they get more creative, could utilize that yak yardage in a way that they don't usually use their players. So hopefully Omar Cooper is able to succeed in the NFL. I don't know if the Jets are the best situation for him. I'd love him at 28 to Houston if he fell all the way down there. I don't think that's the truth. He goes 16 here, and we do have someone falling here in Spencer Fano, who's going to stop, I think, in my opinion, uh, here at 17. Actually, no. We're going to make a little trade here, and that is the Ravens moving around the board again. And I think it'll take like a fourth round, maybe even less, but whatever. Uh, Ravens moving a couple of picks there just to move up 2 spots and go with Spencer Fano here. You're jumping, um, or well, you're moving back to stop potential teams like a guard needing team like the Chargers or the Steelers. Um, or maybe even if the Texans try to make a big jump, because you look at the draft capital of these teams. Steelers, good draft capital. Chargers, not the best draft capital, so maybe they don't move up, but Eagles could move up. Um, Browns could move up there. Texans got really good draft capital, could move up there. So you move up to just secure your guy who's going to play guard or center potentially for you in the NFL. And Spencer Fano drops a little bit for me. And usually I'd probably have them around this range. I think, 13 at the Rams makes a lot of sense. I just decided to go with Mekhi Lemon here. But Ravens move back and then back up slightly to go with Spencer Fano. And at pick 18, I think this is surefire. It's still in Thieneman or Thieneman, whatever the pronunciation of his name is. But They need a Harrison Smith replacement. I think he's a rangy safety, or well, athletic enough to be a rangy safety. He's got uh, the ability to stop the run. And I think he's just going to be a really good player. He's going to be around the ball a lot and, make some plays happen on the ball in the NFL. And I think that is a very seamless transition from Harrison Smith to Dylan Thieneman. And if you're able to develop him, then you have probably one of the better players in this draft class just because of how athletic he is. Here at 19 to the Lions, after moving back a couple of picks, you're going to go out and get potentially your left tackle in Caden Proctor, who could potentially play guard for you as well. You don't really know where you're going to play him, but I think if you get him to cut down on his weight and add some explosiveness to his resume, then you got one of the better players in this draft, potentially one of the better players in this league. He's so powerful. The only concern is really just cutting down that weight and allowing him to be a little more explosive, a little more light on his feet. Because if he gets flat-footed, heavy-footed, whatever you want to call it, then teams can have their way with him driving back a little bit. So I think that's the one concern you have with him, is just getting to cut down on that weight, so it's easier to get on the balls of his feet, and then his base is a lot more solidified because he's at 6'7", 345 rather than 6'7", 370. So we'll see where Caden Proctor goes. I think he has a pretty big range, but I think at 17 even to the Lions it makes a lot of sense, and this time it is at 19. Here at 20 with the Giants, who have the Bears or the Packers pick, excuse me. After trading with the Dallas Cowboys, they went with Olavega Ione with their first pick. I think you could look defensive here. Obviously not on the defensive line, but maybe I don't think CJ Allen goes here. Maybe it's Emmanuel McNeil Warren here. Um, but I'm gonna have some fun here. Am I? I was gonna give him Casey Concepcion. Um, you know what? Screw it. Why wouldn't I? Let's have some fun. A guy that can play the slot for you is an elite separator. I think gives Jackson Dart another weapon to just truly operate and be at the best of his game. Um, the only concern, and I picked up on it a while ago, but Bengal touched on it on him on one of his first round mock draft videos. It's when you watch him in person, it's the same thing too. He tries to, time the ball and clap his hands together rather than fold his hands around the ball, and that just causes the ball to either spurt out of his hands or just go through his hands, and that's really the concern with his drops. I don't know if that's something you can change in the NFL, but the separation ability, the athleticism, the ability to run every route on the route tree at a really high level. You watch that game against Notre Dame, and you're like, wow, this is one of the best receivers in this draft class, and that is the truth. Concepcion is such a good player. I get him in the first round here at pick number 22, the New York Giants, to play that slot receiver, to allow Malik Nabers to play the boundary. And then I think, Darius Slayton could be your wide receiver 3, and I think he's a serviceable wide receiver 3 at that. Pick number 21, though, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could go a lot of different directions here. You could look at guard. I really like, these three guys. I think Pasantis would be the top one for me. But tackle's a big need. Who are you going at tackle though? Blake Miller, I really like, and I think that can make some sense. I think corner can make some sense here. Um, yeah, I think corner does make a lot of sense here. It's just who are you going to take because your two guys that could go in the first round are kind of taken. Do you want a nickel defender and do you want to go with Avion Terrell? I don't know. Here at 21 to the Steelers, I don't know if you want to go with wide receiver. I think Concepcion would be a fun receiver for them because they do need that yak merchant. So I think Concepcion Cooper could be fun picks for them. Here at 21, though, I think it could be a classic trade down spot for the Steelers for a team that wants to move up for a wide receiver. Um, go get Jordan Tyson. Who is that? In my opinion, it is the Cleveland Browns at 24. So we got a decent amount of trades in this. It's in division rivals though. Do I want to do that if it's in division rivals? I don't know. Maybe it's the Dolphins. Yeah, we'll go Dolphins. Sorry, Browns fans. I was gonna give you Jordan Tyson, but not today. For 9 spots, it'd probably be like 87 and 151 in a late round swap or something, but we'll just do this for now. It doesn't really matter. But for 21, the Dolphins are going to go out and get their wide receiver with Jordan Tyson. So, all the first round receivers probably off the board. You could see Denzel Boston in the back half of it, maybe to the Chiefs if they want, a big threat. Maybe the Steelers at 30. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense for them. Maybe it's the Patriots at 31 that do go with Denzel Boston. We'll see if he goes in the first round or not. But Jordan Tyson goes there to the Dolphins, who traded up. So a lot of trades, especially in this area. Three teams that weren't there originally are there now. And then you got the Ravens there, the Panthers there, who aren't originally there, and then obviously the Giants and Cowboys. Big deal that happened. But at pick 22, I am actually going to go to the guard category, and I'm going to go with Emmanuel Pregnon in the first round. I think he's such a good run blocker, and I think the way that Harbaugh plays, I'm a Michigan fan. Um, is that he likes to just physically impose teams, really just wear them out by the fourth quarter. You're just able to churn in and churn in and churn in, really successful drives because your running back's getting 4 yards of carry and then 4 yards of carry and then 7 yards of carry. And then that just continues and continues and continues, and the defensive line's demoralized. They're tired, and you just keep leaning on them until they eventually break and you win the game. Obviously, Herbert's such a dynamic quarterback that it's a little different than what he did in college, but I think he wants to instill some of that identity too, which is why they go with such a good running back in Amari and Hampton. I think they just really need to rebuild that offensive line. Um, and in my opinion, Emmanuel Pregnon is one of the better run blocking guards in this class, so he goes there at 22. Here at 23 to the Eagles, I think this is an interesting pick, but I'm actually going to give them Akeem Mesidor. I think they could use an edge, and Mesidor's age is the concern, but I think the concern is for teams that are looking for developmental pieces that aren't looking to compete right now. The Eagles are a team that are trying to compete right now. They get Mesidor in to give them immediate production, and he's going to give you immediate production in the NFL. It's just, the time he's hitting his second contract, he's going to be 29. While someone like Keldrick Falk is the time that he's going to be hitting his third contract will be 29. So, it's just that disparity there that turns some people off because you're thinking of a draft prospect of someone that's not 25. So, putting it in perspective, I think, if you look at Akeem Mesidor and you draft him in the first round, he's older than, for the Texans' perspective, older than uh, Derek Stingley, who we drafted in 2023 and has had 3 good years of production for the Texans, or 2022, excuse me. So is it 4 good years of production? Shoot, I don't even know. That's completely my bad. I think it's 2022, and then he would have had that rookie year. So yeah, he's had 4 years of good production, and he's probably the same age as Mesidor, if not younger. So it's insane the age of Mesidor. Um, but the Eagles would be taking a swing on the instant production. Yeah, Stingley's 24, so that just puts it in perspective. Someone that was drafted in the first round in 2022 is younger than someone that's getting drafted in the first round in 2026. But you're getting instant production with Mesidor, and I think he's one of the better plays in this draft just because of how polished he is. So Eagles could definitely utilize that and make him into a good player. Here at 24 with the Browns, maybe this is a Denzel Boston spot. And the more I think about it, the more I am just coming to terms with the fact that it is, in fact, the Denzel Boston spot. Um, you're taking a swing on someone who's going to be able to get up and get the ball. You need a receiver so badly, in my opinion. Judy's not cutting it, and then other than that, it's not cutting it. You have Harold Fannin, you have good running backs with Judkins and Sampson, but I think he could use that deep threat, and I think Denzel Boston is certainly that. Try to give Shador as much ability to become a good quarterback as possible, and I think Denzel Boston, although he's not my favorite receiver, would certainly be a step in doing so by just giving them another weapon to try to utilize. Here at pick number 25 to the Chicago Bears, I am going to go with the first interior defensive lineman in this class, and I'm going to go with Caden McDonald there. Um, I think he's a one tech in the NFL, but I think the Bears could really, really utilize a run stuffer there. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be a playmaker in the NFL. I think, if it's not the Bears at 25, I think it's the Texans at 28. If it's not the Texans at 28, then I think it's the Patriots at 31 potentially, or shoot, maybe even the Steelers at 30 if they, anticipate some retirements on the interior defensive line. But Caden McDonald's such a good player. I think the Bears really need to prioritize stopping the run, and I think Caden McDonald's a big step in doing so. So that is why the selection goes there at pick 25. Pick 26 to the Bills. I think you're pretty annoyed that the wide receivers that went off the board did. Maybe Chris Bell could sneak into the first round. I just think that ACL is a concern, so I'm not going to do that for them here. But here at pick 26, I am going to go with CJ Allen here. I don't know if he'll go in the first round or not, but I think, given the way the board fell for Buffalo, I think there is potential that um, CJ Allen does go in the first round in this instance. No trades in the back half of of this first round. I think that could certainly change sometime soon. Maybe even here with the 49ers, because I think they need wide receiver too, and there's nothing really here. Uh, what else are you really going to look at? Maybe TJ Parker. Maybe Keldrick Falk. I'm really a big fan of Keldrick Falk. I just don't think he's the 49ers type of edge rusher. So, I mean, we'll look at a team trying to move up. And considering the Steelers are coming up soon, we'll go with Arizona to move up here. So the 49ers pick up something like this. Why not? Um, Cardinals got to pay a quarterback premium to stop the Steelers from getting Ty Simpson. And the Cardinals move up to 27 to draft Ty Simpson out of Alabama. 49ers move back to 34 to do that. Usually I trade back with the Houston Texans. In this instance, the 49ers are the team that trade back just to prohibit the Steelers from moving up any further to go get their quarterback. But Ty Simpson, I think, those first 6 weeks of the year, eh, up till this point, I think the LSU game is where I'll stop it. Maybe the Tennessee game. He was elite at this point, and I was ready to call him QB, I guess 3 in that instance because it was Dante Moore, but uh Dante Moore stops declaring. Ty Simpson technically is QB2 now, but he's a lot further down the board. I was ready to say it was going to be a class of Mendoza, uh, Moore, and then maybe Simpson here, maybe even Simpson there. You never really know, but really good player Ty Simpson was those first couple of weeks of the season. I think you just have to unlock that back in the NFL, and then you do have someone that could be a really good producer for you. Here at pick 28 to the Houston Texans, I am actually going to sneak this player into the first round of the NFL draft. Maybe some people don't see it this way, but I think he could go very early, and that is Keelan Rutledge. Um, I think you could look into your defensive line here with Peter Woods, Caleb Banks. Maybe Christian Miller at 28 does make some sense. I think that would have been the other pick I would have done. Uh, I was between Miller or Rutledge. I decided to go Rutledge here. Um, you know, I think he's a really good run blocker, and I think the Texans, with the identity they're trying to enforce on the offensive line, could look to someone like Rutledge to instill a culture, to instill an identity that Cole Popovich is trying to, and just move forward with it. So Rutledge, the pick there at 28, I think he's a very solid player. I think he does have some development to do, but you sign Wyatt Teller, you re-sign Ed Ingram, you don't have to, plug Keelan Rutledge in right away. You can give him 2 years of development behind Wyatt Teller, and then he can step in and do that role. And I think he's probably a very similar player to Wyatt Teller in terms of just how physical they are as run blockers. So Rutledge finds the first round. Texans go with him at 28. Here at 29 to the Chiefs, they go with Delane at first, and Keldrick Falk is still available at 29, which I think they do need an edge. I just don't know if he's a Spags type of edge, but considering he's all the way down the board here, I feel like I just have to go with him. So we'll go with Keldrick Falk there at pick 29. And I think we're going with 2 very easy back-to-back picks, and I'll explain them both. But Blake Miller here at 32, the Steelers does make a lot of sense in my opinion. Uh, Keldrick Falk, not the maybe it is, just the bigger edge. But I feel like a TJ Parker or a Ruben Bain would be a Spags type of edge who are more lower center of gravity and just gonna get after it. Keldrick Falk a better run defender than anything, but I do think he does have some pass rush upside there. I don't know why it says 9 sacks here. It was in fact 7 in 2024, but uh, does have some production in college that you can base it off of, especially as a sophomore in the SEC is not an easy feat. So I think people need to start appreciating that. Need to appreciate that he's 6'6", 280. Yeah, 285. I mean, a massive human being, and I think will be a productive player in the NFL after he develops a little bit. So, whatever team takes a swing on him, I'm a big fan of. Blake Miller at 30, I think he just does everything effortlessly. And I talked about this in one of my former videos talking about the Texans and my favorite fits in the first round. I had Blake Miller there just because of how good of a player he is. Does everything effortlessly, has such a good base, uses his hands really well, moves really well, really good athlete, climbs to the second level. So I think this is a home run pick for the Steelers at pick 30, especially losing out on Ty Simpson. You have your offensive line. You need your interior offensive line after losing Isaac Sumalo, but you can address that with moving back because you pick up what'd you pick up? Where's Pittsburgh? Uh, or well, you have 53, excuse me. You have 76, you have 85. So I think you could, move back and then you can move back up for Chase Basantis. You could get Jalen Farmer, who I really like. I really like Billy Stroud as well. Uh, Bo Stevens is a good player. Jeremiah Wright's a good player. But then it does get kind of thin there at guard. Uh, but we'll see what happens with the Steelers in the draft. At 31 to the New England Patriots here, I am going to go with Maxi Hunachor out of Arizona State. I think he's a good player, uh, and I think he could slot in and play right away at right tackle, especially if Morgan Moses does decide to call it quits. But we'll see what does end up happening there. Um, you know, Good players at the end of the day are going to stick around and stay for a long time, but Ihanator can develop there, and then if Morgan Moses just decided to give it a year and come back, that or does decide to come back and give it one more year, then I think Ihanator could, just develop because he is a developmental piece at the end of the day, and I think the Broncos could or the Patriots. I don't know why I said Broncos. The Patriots can certainly look to just use that 1 year of development to teach him. Some stuff, teach him the way they play, and then he'll be able to slot in year 2 or maybe even year 3, and be one of the better right tackles in the league. Here at pick 32 to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I think you're looking boundary corner here. Uh, I think you could look safety here, and Emmanuel McNeil Warren's here, and I think that's a slam dunk pick for the Seahawks. Uh, I mean, you could look edge technically, but I'm just gonna say take a swing on Emmanuel McNeil Warren, get someone that's rangy, someone that can make a play on the ball, and let Mike McDonald have some fun with that defense, which he did last year, which is why y'all won the Super Bowl. But um, his name cuts out there, funnily enough. But that is the entire first round mock draft. Again, be ready for like a 3 round mock draft or something similar to that coming out sometime soon. But for my Texans fans, also expect those 7 round mock drafts to be flowing out pretty consistently. I love draft season. I have a lot of fun doing it, and I hope y'all did enjoy this video. If you did, please be sure to like, subscribe. It does mean a lot. And as always, it's Texans Takeover, and I'm out. Thanks again for watching. Peace.